Yo, what up, what up? This is Tanner, hanging out in my basement today. Got my little heater, my mic. It's pretty fun. I like chilling in my basement sometimes. Need to finish this place. So, yeah, I've been trying to build a select component, like with hooks, like useSelect, like downshift, if you ever heard of downshift. You know, not necessarily going to replace downshift for me, but I just was curious. I just wanted to know if I could do it. You know, how hard it would be, what goes into making a select component. And there's a lot that goes into it, and that's what I wanted to dig into with you guys really quick. I think it's really cool. And some things that like I built into this that are really cool, and there's some things that I'm still missing. And I wanted to go over some of that with you, show you how I did it. So let's get into the code. Here we go, Code Sandbox. There's a link in the description if you guys want to follow along. You can. Otherwise, you can just watch my screen. So, select component. I'm just doing a single select component this time. Right now, I'm not doing multi-select. That's like a whole other beast. But yeah, I want a component where I can give it some options that look like this, like value and a label. And I can tell it which one of those options, like which value it's currently active with. I want to know when they select a new option, and I want to give it a placeholder. Like, just really simple, nothing complicated. So yeah, I made a component called mySelect. Used some state here just to keep track of it here with hooks here. Pulled in some fruits, some random fruit names, so we can search some fruit. And yeah, let's look at the mySelect component. So, mySelect component, what are we doing here? Okay, so right away I knew I wanted to separate my visual implementation from my logical implementation of this select. And the visual implementation, obviously they're very tied together. There's some things that you can't really get away from entirely, like windowing and whatnot. And maybe we can see if we can rip those two apart even more. But for the most part, this is all of the visual stuff is in this component. So I'm using React Window to virtualize the results. And oh no, what is going on there? We can't scroll down. That sucks. We're going to have to do some bug finding right out of the gate. But I'll show you the code first. So we're using React Window to window the results, to virtualize the results. If you haven't seen that, like when you have really, really long lists of things that you need to look at, you can't render all of those in the browser. You have to virtualize them as they're coming in and out of a scrolling viewport. Makes it a lot faster, and in a lot of cases it's necessary to keep performance up. So that's what we're doing with React Window. I made a hook called useSelect. It's a custom hook, and it's up here, that we'll be using for the logical part of the select box. I made an options wrapper component from the fixed size list from React Window. That's going to hold all of our options. That's this black box thing over here with all of our options in it. And then I made an option style component that is just like one of these little rows. If it's selected, it's gray background. If it's active, it's light blue, or it's transparent. They flex, you know, it aligns at center, it's got some padding. That's great. Here's the mySelect component. So I am taking those value options on change. I also have max items and item height, which is important for virtualization. So the max items is like how many items can you see in the viewport at one time. And you know what? I kind of want to change that to be visible items. Let's see. Yeah, I'm just going to do that right now. Max items sounds weird. Visible items. Okay, so I have the visible items set to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I have the item height set to 40. It's right there. Taking the rest of the stuff, I don't really know what I'm doing with the rest, but Oh well, we don't really need that right now. So I'm passing that stuff to the useSelect hook, and it's giving me back a shiz ton of data, like a lot of stuff over here. It's giving me the visible options, the items on the page, or the number of items on the page. It's giving me the selected option, the active option. It's giving me the height of the thing that I need to render. It's giving me, let's see, some refs that I need to do. And obviously this could all be a lot smarter if we use like prop getters. I'm just keeping it simple for now. It gives us a select option function we can call. Get key props. That's another prop getter thing. Handle search value change, handle search focus, handle search blur. It's all this stuff in here. If it's open, the search value, activate option. Yeah, and then we get to use it all. So here's our option renderer. We have to forward the ref. If you guys have ever used React Window, it's important that you take the ref that React Window gives you and put it on your component, because that's how it's going to track its height and where it is in the virtualized viewport. And it also is handy for scrolling to that item, which is actually what happens. So you can see as I, oh no, we're going to have to fix it. You know what? Let's fix it right now. First off, we're going to take, no, we're not going to fix it yet. I'm going to keep going through the code. Got to stay on track. So, okay, right here. Here's the wrapper for the entire input component. I made it inline block. I made it relative because our options are absolutely positioned to the bottom of the entire thing. So here's our wrapper. Here's the input for the search and the current value. So I say, let's see, get key props. Get key props is actually just some key binding stuff that's happening here. So that when I use the up and down arrows and the escape key or the enter key, that it all works. So it's getting some props from there. I'll show you that in a minute. And let's see, value. If it's open or there's not a selected option, we just want to use the search value. Otherwise, we want to use the label from this selected option. So it's like bilberries, yeah. Then we have all the handlers here, and then a placeholder, which there should, let's see, select one. I guess that's when the placeholder shows up. And then, yeah, get key props. Here's our options. This is important right here. So if it's open, show the options. Really cool. Really simple. Oh, hi there. So this is weird. We have to like compose together a bunch of these refs because we have the React Window instance wants to own this options element. So it wants a copy of the ref. And then we also have a click outside thing. So you saw if I clicked outside of the box that it closes it. So we have a click outside reference thing that wants to own it too. So we have to be like, okay, get the ref and give it to everything that needs it. It's a lot of ref passing around. This is something that's actually kind of annoying. I wish there was a better way to compose refs. Like if you could actually pass through an array of refs, that would be so cool. I don't think you can actually, reactjs.org. Let's see, docs, refs. React supports the ref attribute can an object callback function or string legacy API. The ref attribute, the function receives an underlying DOM element, make things happen in your app. Yeah, you know, it would be so cool if we could just use an array, but I don't feel like that's possible. Oh, you have to create a ref, and then you put it on there. What if I want two? Or what if there's two references that have been given to me and I have to put them on the same element? Don't you agree? We should tweet about that right now. We should. Why doesn't React let you use multiple refs on the same element easily? I want to just be able to pass an array of refs to the ref. ref1, ref2, prop, and have it just work. Boom. That's what I want. But you can't do that, so you got to do some weird wizardry stuff here. Okay, so this options element is still the actual fixed size list thing from React window. So we have to give it a height, an item count, an item size, and a width so that it knows how to virtualize, which it's not doing right now because my code is never perfect. Code is hard. Programming's hard. Then we pass our option renderer underneath it. And you know what? This option renderer, even though it's being created up here, it feels weird that it's being created in line every time. I guess that's not a problem, but I'm just going to pass it right here. So, yeah, let's get into the actual hook, because I think that's the most interesting part. The visual stuff is cool, but the hook is really where I think it gets awesome. So, everything in hooks feels so linear. I love it. You can think about everything just linearly. There's not a lot of like back and forth like there was with lifecycle methods. So right straight from the beginning, we're saying, hey, you know what? Get us the selected option index. So we search through the options and we find the index of the option that matches the current value. So now we have the selected option index. Then we get the selected option using that index. Pretty straightforward here. We set up some refs. We need a ref for our input so that we can focus it when they, like when you tab onto it and you focus the input, we want it to autofocus. Or when you click on this, we want it to focus. Or if it just opens for whatever reason, we want to make sure that we can focus it. We also want a copy of the React window instance ref so that we can do cool stuff with it in here. We have a search value state that we need to keep track of. Like you can type in here, hey, and search for stuff. Apples, berries, G-berries. Oh, it's a gooseberry. And then we have an open state that we need to track. So we use state false there. We have an active index, which is like, hey, which one are we currently hovering over or which one is currently selected? You know what I mean? So you can use your arrows, and that's toggling the active index. And then, let's see. Yeah, and then hovering over it is also doing the active index. So then we take our options and we have to whittle the options down based on the search value. If there is a search value, we whittle it down. So if there is a search value, we're using match sorter. If you haven't seen match sorter, then let's see, match sorter. Well, then you should check it out. It's built by the amazing Kent C. Dodds. Kent's awesome. He builds great stuff. Match sorter, simple, expected, and deterministic best match sorting of an array in JavaScript. It's really cool. He uses like sensible ranking systems to actually sort the array based on criteria, and it works really well. You guys should use match sorter. It's amazing. Basically, it does fuzzy matching, so it does all this stuff. Words that start with, equals, case sensitive, case acronyms. It has contains acronyms. There's probably some more really complex pattern matching you can do outside of this, but this just works great on its own. So it's really easy. You just call match sorter with the array you want to sort, the value you want to use, and then the keys that you want to sort across. Right here, I just do the label. And out comes a filtered and ranked options array. And after we have that, and if there's not a search value, we just use the options, all the options. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, so active option, we just take the active index, get it from the options. Click outside ref, use click outside ref. So this is another little custom hook I built, which is kind of cool. Let's come down here to this one. Use click outside ref. It takes an active Boolean and a function to call when you have clicked outside of the element that is on the ref. So it creates a ref, and it lets you put that ref wherever you want. We put it on our options over here on our options box, so that, and we say when it's opened. So if you look at this, we say when our selector is open and they click outside of wherever we're using this reference, then set the open to false. And we do that by, let's see, this handle is when they click. And we say, you know what, if they were touching and clicking, there's some like touch support in here. And then we say, hey, if the element they clicked is not within the element that we're listening to, then fire the function. Otherwise, it doesn't run. And every single time that this hook gets run, we are making sure that if it's active, we have added the listeners, and if it's not, we've removed them. Really straightforward. This is a great piece of code, I think. In and of itself, you can use it. It's really, really great. You should use that. I'm going to use it. And then, let's see, let's go back up. So when we click outside, it's going to close it. And then we have to find out, let's see, click outside reference doesn't rely really on anything. It does rely on set. Let's see, we're going to move it down here. Okay, so items on page, this is just some minimum work here. So we take the visible items. So, oh, maybe that is what? Visible items. Maybe this is what's causing the bug. So we take the visible items, which is 10. We've set it to 10. Or we take the length of the options. Because if we only have 2 options, we don't want to render a box for 10. So we take the lowest one, either the visible items or the options link. And that's how many items are going to be on the page. Then we can determine the height by saying how many items are on the page times the item height. So we get the height. And then, yeah, after that, let's see, we already went over this. Set active index. Oh, this is just a proxy function to set our active index on state. It's like this is the blue thing, like what's active. We just want to make sure that we cannot set an active index that is lower than 0 or higher than the visible amount of options, if that makes sense. So yeah. Let's see, now we have some effects. You know what, let's move our effects to the bottom of all of this. First we'll go over the rest of these methods. So yeah, select active index, select option. It just fires the on change with the actual value that we can use up here. So on change, we'll just go to on change all the way up, and then the new value will come back down. And we close when they select an option. When they change the search value, we want to update the search value and make sure that it's open. One of those is like this, where if they have, let's see, acai, if they have selected one right here, but they start typing again, we want to make sure that it's open. So anytime that the search value changes, we make sure that it's open right here. Handle search click. Yeah, when they click on the search, like when they click on the input, we want to make sure that we set the search value to nothing and set it open. Make sure that it's open. Handle search focus. When they focus it, we do the same thing as if they would click it. So they focus it, and so it does this same thing right here. Sets search value to nothing, opens it. Let's see, handle search blur. So this one's interesting. So when they blur away, like when they blur away from the, oh, that's interesting. I guess we haven't covered all the use cases yet. When they blur away from the input, we want to close it, but only if they've hit tab really. really only if they hit tab. Any other type of blurring, well, there's two cases, because if they click on one of these options down here, technically that's blurring away from the input. But we don't want to close the input before we have actually set the value. So that what we do here is we say if the event target, if the element that they clicked is within our options, don't do anything. And it looks like we need another one here. So let's see, event, no, key code info. Let's see, if they hit tab, guess we could do tab too. So we could say e key equals tab. So if that equals tab, then we're going to return that. If it's outside of the target, we're not going to do anything. Otherwise, we're just going to close it. So now when we, oh, it's still not working. We're blurring away from it. I guess that's not the way to do it. We can come back to that later, but basically it lets us select options and then also click off. So blurring is kind of weird. It's a little bit of a race condition. But you know, we can get around it. Activate option is kind of cool. What it does is it takes the option and it finds the index of that option, and then it sets, let's see, if the index was found, then it sets the active index to that option, or that index. Otherwise, it just does the old one. So that's done for like hovering over these right here. This isn't like, we're not changing the hover state with CSS. We're actually on, when we mouse over a new option, we are activating it, just like we would with the up and down arrows. So that's kind of cool. So like if we hover over apricots, we can actually up and down from apricots right there. Or if we come down, hover over blackberries, we can go up from there. Get key props. This is like a little key binding thing. This isn't even really a hook. I just still call it use keys. I don't know why. But really what it does is it just returns, it takes some user keys right here, like these key bindings, and it returns some props, a function to get some props, where make sure that we have a tab index so that we can focus whatever it is that we want to bind to with our keys. And then we have an on key down. And we look, for every on key down, we look for the event from these user keys on the handler. Or yeah, we look for the handler. And if the handler exists for that key code, then we run the handler just with the key code, the key, if it was shifted or not, and then the event after it. And then we run any other on key down stuff too. So use keys just gives us a get key props that listens for this stuff and does this stuff. So when they arrow up, we do this. We prevent the default. We figure out if we should go up an entire page or not, or if just a single one. We make sure it's open, and then we set the active index to plus or minus the amount. So you can actually see when I shift, it'll go a whole page. Pretty cool. And then we get into our effects. Effects are really what makes this experience much easier. If we were trying to do this with normal like class components, it would be so hard. Effects just are great. So we have one effect here, and you know what? I can't remember why I'm using layout effect for a lot of these, but we probably would be fine to just use normal effects on all of these, honestly. Use effect. we don't need to use the layout effect. So, because we're not really like measuring anything. So, use effect, so this first one says, when we're searching, activate the first option. So we say when the search value changes, set the active index to 0. So if we were like down here on like bananas, but we start typing apple, see how it set the search value to the first one? As soon as we start typing, it's because you're searching, so you always want to have the topmost item be the one that's selected, so that the closer you get, you can just hit enter and it selects whatever one is active. So if we say like zucchini, boom. Or if we say berries, bilberries is top one, maybe that's the one we wanted. But it just lets you, it's more expected that it would be at the top. So every time the search value changes, we set the active index to 0. When opening, set the active index to the selected option and focus the input. Well, that's technically not what we want to do anymore. So what we want to do is when we open and close the options, set the active index to 0. And let's see, if opening, focus the input. So we say if open changes, if it changes from true or false, whatever, anytime open changes, we want to set the active index to 0. So if we open it, you'll see the active index is 0. And you know what? I just realized that we should probably use the props active light blue before that one. Okay, that makes way more sense. So you'll see when we click it, it sets it to 0, and we can come down and hover over blueberries, but if we exit and then open again, it's not on blueberries. It's always at the top when we open and close. That's great. And let's see, when isOpen changes, so if we were to be controlling isOpen and we were to open it, it would hover it, or it would activate and focus the input too. That's really nice here. This could be optional, but I like it. In fact, I wonder if we took that off, if it would still behave the way that it does. Yeah. When we focus it, yeah. So actually, in my opinion, that's probably unnecessary for now. When the active index changes, scroll to that item. Okay, this is one that isn't working right now because we're not showing all the items we should. So let's see, visible items. We're getting to the end of the hook here. I think it's time we fix it and pick up right back where we left off. So it's not letting us scroll past this. And it's because in our mySelect, right here, item count. Items on page is not what we want. We want visible options length. Yeah, there we go. So that means we actually aren't even using the items on page is not even a thing. So items on page, are we using that anywhere else? I guess we're using it internally to figure out the height, but we don't necessarily need to. I guess we could still send it through. Okay, so let's go back to where we were. This will make more sense now. When the active index changes, scroll to that item. So you'll see that as we hover over like these, the active index is changing, but what if we arrow down past the bottom? Well, you'll see it actually follows our actions down the page. And if we were to go up, it would do the same thing. Now remember how we could hold shift and it would skip the amount of items that are on the page? So it does the same thing. It always keeps whatever the active one in the page is. That's funny because if it's just a little bit visible, see how pomegranate is barely visible right now? if I hover over it, it will technically activate it and it brings it into view. That's kind of interesting. But yeah, that's what makes this possible. So as the active index changes, we're just saying scroll to that item, React window, the virtualizer. It's really cool. And then the last effect we have, it says when the selected option changes, we need to set the search value to whatever that value was. So when I click on something like papaya, the active, let's see, the selected option changed. So it goes and says, if there is a selected option, set the search value to that selected option's value. So right now the search value is that. And you might be thinking, well, what does that have to do with anything? Because when you click it, it just removes the search value anyway. It's for this experience right here. It's not for when you click it. If you tap enter on bananas, notice my cursor is still in the text box, right? Well, that search value needs to be whatever that value is. I haven't clicked on it to clear it. I can actually still keep typing. So if I type bilberries, no, I don't like that. I can, delete it and go back and say blackberries. No, you know what? I want acai. No, I know I want a berry. Well, actually, I want blackberries. Or, what? Let's see. Fruits don't really share a lot of prefixes, do they? BL. So you'd be like, BL, I like blueberries. Actually, no, I want this. So you get the idea. So you can keep typing. You can be like apricots. Oh wait, I didn't want that, and you can delete it. It also, yeah, that's really it. But it makes for a good user experience. Yeah, so we went over click outside ref, use keys. So maybe this mySelect component will make a little more sense now. We just have a bunch of stuff, and we're applying it to our visual right here. There are some things that have to do with, this React window that we should probably pull out of useSelect. Like anything having to do with React window in here would probably be good to pull out. In fact, handle search blur. I wonder if we could do that right now. Because really what it is we want to implement like a scroll to item thing. So it'd be like scroll to index. Yeah. Scroll to index, active index. And then scroll to index would be something that we have to pass through in here. So when we use our hook right here, we'd say scroll to index const scroll to index is this function that takes the index. And that means we need to pull out our React instance ref, or React window instance ref. That's going to create an error in there for now. That's okay. So now our instance ref lives out here with us, and that's good because it's a visual thing. Like that's just a way that we are rendering these. Like the useSelect hook should have no idea about how we're rendering anything. Let's see that. Where are we getting an error? React window instance ref. Oh yeah, we're not getting it back anymore from there. But then useSelect is still using the React window instance ref here. What is it doing? Okay, so when we're blurring, it's saying if the target we are blurring is an option. Really, that's what it is. target get attribute is option. We could try that. We'll just kind of make up our own little attribute called is option to put on options. So let's see. Option adder. We could do that. So right here we do option adder, and then we'll just call, let's see, we'll do const option adder equals is option. Is option. And then on our options, we'll do this. Wait, that's not the one we actually click. It's this one. Let's see, unexpected token. Okay, so that means, really? Option adder. Console log e target get attribute option adder. Oh wait, is there a has attribute? I think there is on the DOM. Let's see, has attribute. Yeah, we'll just use that one. Well, clearly it wasn't going to do it that way. We need has attribute options adder. That way we can, no, still nothing. Console log e target has attribute option adder. False. Are you sure? Let's check it out. So if we come in, it's open. Oh, this is the worst about debugging select boxes. Seriously, the worst. Is open, we'll just set it to true. Okay, so somewhere in here we have our options right here. This is an option. Why does it not have, oh, is it because we have to use data? If it is, no, it's still not showing up. Why isn't it showing up? Does anybody have any ideas there? I mean, usually I can put whatever attribute I want on anything. Well, that is a terrible experience. It all has to do with this really weird conflict of click outside ref. It's saying if you click outside, or no, it's not the click outside. It's the blur. When you're blurring away from the input, it's thinking that this is a blur, so it's setting the open to false. What if we just don't do that? What if we just detect the console log e target key? False. Event key is tab. Oh, it's not event, it's not key. It's this one. Huh. Well, that's weird. Let's get rid of this junk. I guess we could handle the search blur in a different way. We're still going to, let's see, set open false. But I guess we could use our key handler right here. And we can say, you know what, when they tab away from it, set is open to false. Handle search blur is not a thing anymore. So over here, handle search blur. We could turn these into prop getters, but handle search blur. We don't really have to right now. Okay, so now when you click off of it, it closes. When you tab away from it, it closes. So when you avocado, if you tab, it skips it. Aki, I don't even know what an Aki is. So, okay, I think that solves it for now. So there you have it. Ta-da! It's a select hook. It's 190 lines prettified. It's not too bad. There's definitely some challenges in here, some things to think about. You know, select boxes are very complicated user experiences if you break everything out. You know, there's a lot to think about. Really, the most challenging things I think I learned about this is like composing all these different refs together is kind of intense. Handling key codes isn't hard, but it's just, it feels, I mean, you just have to be careful that like this arrow up, I don't know if that's going to be the same key across all the browsers, you know, so handling browser compatibility with like keyboard navigation, all this effect stuff, wow, this is really nice. Being able to do effects like this instead of using the old class syntax. And then being able to split these out, like this use click outside ref was really fun to build. And this use keys thing, that's not even really a use keys thing. It's not really a hook, but still a lot of fun to build. The virtualization part, you know, it totally isn't like that necessary, the virtualization. It's not something that's like going to break all the time. Let's see, yep, it still works. But if you have really long lists, it comes in handy. The one part where virtualization is hard and doesn't work that well is if your options are like multi-line, then virtualization is hard because that gets into dynamic item height, and there are some virtualizers like windowing utilities that will do dynamic height, but not really that well just yet. It's kind of a browser limitation to some extent. But the other thing too is like we could render whatever we want inside of these options. That's the other great thing. Like inside of this option, if there was something special that we wanted to do, like we could do an emoji if we wanted. Or we could pass the option to a custom renderer, you know, and it would Why did we do a peace sign when we're talking about fruit? We should have done a fruit emoji. What's a good fruit emoji? Yeah. So you could pass your option to a custom renderer and render whatever you want. You just have to make sure that if you're virtualizing it, it has to be in the specified height for the item height. So anyways, those are some of the challenges that I ran into. The other thing, so what is it lacking still? Well, there's a lot of things it's lacking. One of the most important ones being accessibility. That's why downshift exists, and it's so good. Downshift, again, built by Kent C. Dodds, the man, the legend. Primitive to build, simple, flexible, ARIA compliant, enhanced input React components. So that's the ticket right there, is that it's accessible. There's a lot of things that go into accessibility, and I didn't really think about any of those right now because those are difficult problems to solve right out of the gate. But like status messages and all this stuff, I feel like it's something we could easily add in with a little bit of work. Accessibility is hard to get sometimes, but I feel like with some work we'd be able to do it. Let's see. Get menu props, highlighted index. I don't think there's too many deal breakers that aren't in here actually. I guess making it a controlled input would be one. But that's the beauty of controlling your own output. If you wanted it to be controlled, you can control everything about the visibility right now if you wanted to anyway. You could just pass through your own isOpen and just have it open all the time. If you just passed true right here, it would always be open, even when you don't have anything selected. And you could go in and control it and always show all the options all the time, or do a lot of cool things if you can control all the rendering yourself. State reducers are awesome, but it's overkill for this example. So yeah, pretty cool. You can build your own select component using hooks, and it's actually a really good experience. My next adventure would probably be trying to at least build a multi-select component, or maybe adding multi-select functionality to this component. I don't know about the logical forking between the two, how different they would really be, but I don't know. That's going to be something for next time. Maybe that's going to be my next live stream. But anyways, thanks for hanging out with me, you guys. I know my streams are long, but they're real. I'm not showing you some, I just barely wrote this, and man, it was hard. I went through a lot of issues. We even had some bugs right from the beginning, but debugging those is a real process. And don't be fake. Don't be an Instagrammer. Be a programmer. Be real. Anyways, I gotta go, you guys. Thanks for hanging out. We'll talk to you later. See ya.